Hey guys, this is Alex for Quirks, and today we're gonna take a look at the main differences between an editable poly and an edit poly modifier in 3ds Max. So as you can see, I already have 3ds Max opened up. I'm currently using version 2013, and the only difference to what your user interface looks like probably is this expanded modifier panel over here. And this is actually quite handy, and I'm gonna explain why in a second. But practically the first thing I want you to do is to maximize your viewport. In case you don't know how to do that, it's quite simple. So you can either go down here and click maximize viewport toggle, or you can just hit Alt W, which will do the same thing. And now let's create two identical spheres. So go to the create panel, click sphere, and then drag it out in your viewport. Maybe just give it a radius of 60 there. And then hit W on your keyboard to bring up the move tool. And then just shift drag into any direction to make a copy. Then just click OK on the clone options. It's gonna be fine for now. And the next thing I want to do is hit F4 to turn on edged faces and hit J to get rid of those selection brackets. Now, for one of the spheres, I want to apply an edit poly modifier. So just type in edit and then select your edit poly modifier. And for the other one, I want to right click on it and go to convert to editable poly. And this is the point where the expanded modifier panel comes in. So as I already mentioned, I'm usually using two columns, which has one huge advantage over using just one column. It gives you all of the options at first glance, and you don't have to scroll back and forth like you would if you were only using a single column. And that really speeds up your workflow in general. Now, the first difference that you will see here is that as soon as I converted this to an editable poly, the sphere properties disappeared. Whereas over here, I only dropped an edit poly modifier on top of the sphere. So I can still modify the original properties of the sphere, such as its segments or its radius. And over here, I can no longer do that. I can still scale it, but I cannot adjust the segments. And we can even drag this a little bit further. So what I can do is I can do an extrusion on both of those spheres, just select a few faces, then go over here to extrude, and maybe just extrude with like 23 centimeters or whatever. This is just for the sake of proving a point. And then do the same thing over here. Just select another 4 polygons and extrude those out. Now, keep in mind, this is the sphere with the edit poly modifier on it. So if I want to adjust the original properties of the sphere, I can easily do that. Now, it's gonna give me a warning dialog that tells me that this modifier, the edit poly modifier to be more specific, is dependent on the topology of the model, which means that if you change the topology underneath it, you will get some undesirable results. I'm gonna show you what that means in a moment. But before we do that, let's just say I want to change the radius of the sphere, which I can still do because I still have my sphere properties. And now I can just go back to the top of my modifier stack. So go back to the edit poly by clicking on it, and my changes are still there. Now here's what I couldn't do. I couldn't adjust the segment count anymore because that's modifying the original and underlying topology, which is going to cause results that you probably wouldn't want. So I've just cranked out the segments on the sphere to 46, and now I'm gonna go back to the edit poly modifier. Now obviously this is not what we want. If we compare this to our previous result, it looks quite different. That's because you've modified the topology. So you have either added or removed polygons or vertices or edges. Either of those three count. And that's something that's not supported. So if you do that, you can no longer switch back and forth. But what I can do is I can add a noise modifier on top, and I can give it a fractal with a roughness of about 0.5 or whatever you want to use, and then maybe give it a strength of 8 by 8 by 8. And now I can go up here and let's say I'm gonna do some modifications to this model now. I'm gonna bell this out, and for the sake of argument, let's say I'm not happy with the result and I want to change the noise pattern. And the good news is that with the edit poly modifier applied, I can still do that. I can go back here and I can probably change the iterations on my roughness pattern, or I can even change the roughness itself if it's a little too rough for me. Then I can just go back up here and it's still gonna look the same. The only thing that's changed is the noise pattern. So this is in fact very handy, especially once you start working on some more complex models where you would probably want like multiple levels of detail. And at the same time, this wouldn't work with the editable poly modifier. So let's say I drop a noise pattern or a noise modifier on here, give it pretty much the same values, and let's say I would now collapse this. So I would right click on the model again, go to convert to editable poly. Now as you can see, the noise modifier is gone. So I can no longer adjust the underlying noise pattern. I probably could drop another noise modifier on top of it, but that's an unnecessary action, especially since it doesn't give me the same values anymore. So I cannot decrease the noise but only increase it. So this is probably the major advantage of an edit poly modifier over your traditional editable poly. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. And I'm probably planning to turn this into a series on the basics of modeling in 3ds Max, in case some of you guys might be interested. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and that's it.